welcome to the Boxing Now podcast. I am your host, that dude named Dave. And as always, he's on my left, but he's my right-hand man, Jorge. How's it going today, man?
Doing great, Dave.
Yeah, good to see you here. Before we get started, let's just do the regular stuff what we do here. Click like and subscribe and click on the notification bell for YouTube and for Spotify. Click on follow to check us out there. And also for our affiliates on Spangler Sports World on channel 250 on the Zingo app. That's where you can find us there. Also the other tags, Facebook, Instagram, still building up, and the website, boxingnowonline.com are under construction here. So for today's episode, we want to talk about a few things, Jorge. We want to talk about Tyson Fury, Joshua finally getting signed, Estrada, Chocolito 2. But before we get into all that here, let's do this here. We got to do a RIP for Marvin Hagler, man. We lost a great boxing icon this week. Actually, on my birthday, it's hate to say it, like my birthday was actually this Saturday, and I was looking on social media on Twitter, and one of the things I hate to see is when you see one of your legends pass away. And Marvelous Marvin Hagler passed away on Saturday, March 13th at 66 years old, man. So I want to say rest in peace to Marvin Hagler.
Rest in peace, a great boxer. Someone that my dad followed a lot when, when he came to this country and stuff. And we were talking about this before I showed up for today's recording, and he watched them back then, closed circuit events and stuff. He'd go watch them at the Chicago Stadium for the Hearns fight. That was one of his great stories that he's told me about, and some of the other places where he's gone to watch them at closed circuit. The only thing he didn't watch at closed circuit and kind of refused to kind of watch the replay of it was the Ray Leonard fight when he lost that one, because he was such a huge fan of him. He only wanted to remember him in his career the way he remembered seeing him, just being a winner. So he ended up missing that fight and never really watched it because that's not the way he wanted to remember him. That's how much of a fan he was.
Yeah, speaking of that Leonard fight, that was actually the last time he actually fought. I watched that fight several times. Like there's been times I watched the fight and I see that Leonard won. There's times I've seen it that Hagler won. He was Tyson before Tyson. Let me talk about he was the man, the champion at middleweight from 1980 to 87. There was nobody touching him. Like he went up the hard way when you look at his background. Like when he actually won his first middleweight title, he didn't get to enjoy it. They threw beer bottles and all kinds of things into the ring because they were not happy that this man won the fight. He had to go to other people's backyards. He actually had to go to Philadelphia to beat the who's who of Philly fighters just to get his recognition. And that was one of the things that was brought between him and Sugar Ray Leonard. Leonard, in boxing, you can have people who come up the hard way and you see the gritty hard work they put in. And then you got the guys who have the Olympic pedigree and that amateur background that gets him to that superstar level so fast. Leonard had the great amateur record. He was a gold medalist in the Olympics. And by having that gold medal, was able to get those top paydays right out the gate, basically. It almost seems like Ray Leonard had it handed to him, but it wasn't. He's a superstar. He was great. He worked at his craft to get to where he was at. But it just, like, from Hagler's standpoint, it's like, man, I have to go to the bottom of the gutter to get where he was at, And for him to be the middleweight champion in the way he dominated the division for 7 years. Like recently, we look at Triple G. Remember, he was running through middleweights because he couldn't get the fights, but he could not touch what Hagler was doing during that time period. And one of the best fights that I loved, Jorge, was when he fought Tommy Hitman Hearns, the 3 rounds of destruction, man. I mean, I tell everybody right now, if you have an opportunity to watch a fight really fast, you want to see something great about boxing, watch that fight, man. I know you've seen that a million times.
Yeah, the round 1 is always going to go down epic. My dad was like, hey, what, all 3 rounds? That's probably the best 3 rounds you'll ever see in boxing ever. 3 consecutive rounds of nonstop action. And the lead up to that fight, I mean, they hated each other.
Oh, my God.
They hated each other.
Man, Jerry Curl Juice was you had the battle of the Jerry Curl Juice and the bald head man. You know what I'm saying? Like when you black, you see that, man, you had different sides of the coin for that.
Styles made fights, and then literally Styles made fights outside the ring and in the ring.
Yes, oh my God. And I literally will just go on Instagram and someone will literally post that fight. Like, you know how Instagram, you're literally just looking for photos and quick, real videos. That's the one fight you can actually watch on Instagram. Like, so, Pete Rock just posted the fighting. I'm gonna go ahead and watch this for 10 minutes right now. Like, like I know that Tommy Hitman Hearns lost that fight in the 3rd round. Even with those 3 rounds, it showed the kind of jaw that both of these men had. The fact that they survived 10 plus minutes of shots to the body, the head combinations, uppercuts, just eating it, and then they just kept coming back. When people think 3 rounds and think no, it would they took lives off their lives on that fight from those 3 rounds.
Hearns hurt his hand in the first round, and you can tell with the animosity was still there for 3 rounds. He was willing to break the rest of his hand, the very other part of his body, just to beat Hagler that night.
Yeah.
I mean, he was basically putting himself life in limit, did not care. It's an awesome 3 rounds, highly recommended. Watch it, then watch it again. And then watch it again, and you'll just come away impressed.
And let me add too, before we started this boxing podcast, I was putting together this whole set of things, right? You see the Ali picture in the background. I have my WBC belt. One of the things that I suggest everybody read, if you get the chance, or even if you don't have time to read, but buy it and put it to the side, have it right here. 4 Kings. I'm not trying to advertise, but this was an error in boxing that these 4 fighters had, the 4 Kings. We're talking about Sugar Ray Leonard, talking about Hagler, Hearns, and Duran. These 4 men fought each other multiple times. And I'm telling everybody away from the mic that to read that book, download it, get an whatever. I want to have the hard copy. I mean, it's an error in boxing, and you can watch the videos that it's not even comparable to see these guys fight from the different weight classes multiple times and gave us battles and wars. You know, like for Duran and Leonard, Duran gave Leonard that business that first fight. The second fight, it was the No Mas fight. Totally 2 different fights, you know. Like as we just talked about Hagler Hearns. They had, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard and then Hagler. Talking about that was Hagler's last fight. That he felt that he won that fight. Leonard did the semi-rope-a-dope, you know, 30 seconds. You know, and he just throw 100 punches into the sway the judges. And hey, that is gamesmanship. Like, I mean, people do it all the time now, but it wasn't really thought about people doing it that much. And for him to have the kind of endurance to throw the punches he was throwing to sway the judges every round like that, I mean, it was a masterclass for both sides. So let me add here too for Hagler, he was 62-3-2, 52 KOs, great record. Like I said, baddest man before Tyson.
The tomato, I mean, there were no tomato cans in any of those fights that Hagler would fight. I mean, one of the guys that my dad was mentioning, and I had to dig him up one more time though, John Mugabe. That man was 26-0 with 26 knockouts when he ended up fighting him. And my dad saw it at a closed circuit, and I mean, he basically fought guys that were up and coming, that were the cream of the crop of the fighters coming up, outside of the fighters that you mentioned, right, from the 4 Kings era and stuff. So Hagler was, I mean, speechless. I mean, I was speechless about the man's career and the guys he fought. And outside of 3 rounds that took years off his life, he fought everybody that was there in front of him.
Yeah. Let me add, too, that after that fight with Leonard, he moved to Italy, and that's his wife that he was with for 31 years before he passed away. He became a movie star in Italy. That's why we didn't hear from him. He was done with boxing. He felt that he was robbed the same way that, you know, early in his career. He matter of fact, let me just add this too before I get in there. He legally changed his name to Marvelous Marvin Hagler because white announcers and white commentators or people covering the fights would not call him Marvelous. So he's like, no, you're going to call me Marvelous because this is how I'm branding myself and you're going to respect me. Oh, you're not? Legally change my name. Then let's see you disrespect me now. So then they legally have to call him Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He was like, nah, you're gonna respect me. You gotta like that. Like, he could not even get respect by calling by his own nickname, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's I can imagine if you were a fan of a different fighter that lost to Hagler and you just refuse to call him Marvelous just because of that. Like, you just want, you know, like, in other words, it's like if you wanted to be called David the Great.
Yeah.
I can see how people are like, you know, no, you're just David to me.
But you know what though? I'm gonna make you call me that. I'm legally changing I'm going to the courthouse. I'm gonna pay this, whatever this fee, $50, $100, whatever it costs, whatever county you're in to change your name. Like, yeah, what are you gonna call me now?
Exactly. So another point is that
same thing like when Ali changed his name. Like, we see, we were talking about the other week about the bad and worst of Ali and Frazier. One of the things was Frazier would in the beginning would not call him Muhammad Ali, kept calling him Cassius Clay, and he legally changed his name, not only because of religion wise, but it was legally changed. And when you make that kind of change, you want to be declared the name that you are. This is who you think you are. You're branding yourself, or this is your lifestyle. Call me by my real name. And Ali he beat the crap out of folks when you call him real name. You can see why Hagler felt a certain type of way about other fighters too, and then in the media, you know. So, man, I just hate the fact that, he was a movie star in Italy, and then he had a great life. There was also, too, there was talks of a rematch between him and Leonard, but he wouldn't do it. It didn't matter how much money that was on the table. He kept saying no. And another thing I want to add to the gamesmanship of both Leonard and Hagler was the fact that the rules were kind of changed for this fight. Hagler was the champion. Leonard had been retired for 5 years. Remember, he had the detached retina.
Yep.
Remember, years earlier, they thought that fight was going to be announced, and Sugar Ray did the bait and switch, baby. He came in the ring. It's like, you guys will never see this fight because I'm retired, baby. I don't even remember that. It was years ago, but he was in the ring, and everybody thought it was going to be announced this fight, and he retired 5 years later. The thing that changed this fight, though, that I think that Hagler would have won, that Ray asked for a 12-round fight instead of a 15-round fight. Don't know if you know that. He gave in to Hagler's demands because he was the champion. Like, I'm going to get the money, the ring walk, also like that. Leonard won it to 12 rounds. He knew that if it went 15 rounds, he would not beat Hagler.
Yeah, the 3 extra rounds of endurance. I mean, Hagler trained for 15 rounds.
And he'd been out. And here's the thing about Leonard, too, his greatness on the, with him and Hearns. He was retired for 5 years and came straight to this fight. That just shows and to see this fight and how great it was, just to show two remarkable fighters at their time, pound for pound, even being away that long, and give us a fight like that. I'm hoping that there's fights that we're going to talk about later on in the show here that can happen. But these two put it on, and it was great to watch. I wish there was a second one, and he's just no longer here. And it just sucks to see when you have your legends and you hear them that, they're no longer with us. And it kind of gives that mortality, lets us know, hey, we're getting old, man. It sucks.
So not just to the 12 rounds or the 15 rounds, the ring size was 22 by 22 feet.
Yeah, big ring too.
Bigger ring for Leonard.
And that's for Leonard, because now the biggest ring is 20 by 20 now.
Yep.
That you will see. You don't see anything bigger than 20 by 20. You see rings like the small rings, 16 or 18 by 18. You know that's the guy he wants to bang like a Triple G would want an 18 by 18 ring. Yeah. Now you see 20 by 20, but the fact that you saw 22 by 22, that's why we saw Ray dancing as good as he was, baby. Man.
You know the room to dance. I'll put my dancing shoes on.
Man, he was tap dancing and everything else, man. If I had a 22 by 22, Meg would have probably won a 22 by 22 ring if he could get that during his fighting career. Good God. Same thing with Manny. Manny could use those angles on a 22 by 22 and kill it. My God.
Sure, Pauline Malignaggi would have killed for that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's for real. So, man, it sucks, man. I hate to talk. Like we just talked about Leon Spinks passed away a few weeks back too as well. So I just hate to see our greats. Like 66 is young, man. 66 is not old. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I saw him at a boxing fight in Vegas 8 years ago. To see he would come to fights regularly, but you just rather see these guys in their 70s and 80s. You want to see your legends get old. You want to see them gracefully go out. But it is what it is. It's life.
Yeah, you want to get to about 70, 80, just to the point where they can say, guys, it was a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and then like I said, like we're not going to see the Hall of Fame this year because of COVID again. Like, and that's one place you see all the greats at. Like every year, like so these last 2 years, we're being robbed of not not getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, but seeing the greats all together in one location. So in each year when we lose them, there's one less person in that in the reunion that we're not going to see anymore.
Yeah, you're basically missing an opportunity to appreciate the gathering of history, and that's what all that is just decades and decades of boxing history. Being robbed these last 2 years, and it sucks. I'm hoping next year's a better year.
Yeah, man. So rest in peace to marvelous Marvin Hagler. If you're a boxing fan, boxing junkie, if you're just bored, I just say just go down a YouTube rabbit hole and just put in Hagler, and you're not gonna be disappointed for a good hour if that's all you got. 20 minutes, even just 10 minutes with him and Hagler Hearns. So rest in peace to marvelous Marvin Hagler, man. Great fighter. So let me do this here. Yeah. So let's transition to the next subject at hand here. We want to go back to the heavyweights, Jorge. The fight is signed, still delivered.
About time, because the commentary lately was like, and you saw the writing. You knew once Fury gets out there spewing the nonsense.
Fury was not happy this weekend.
Fury was moody. Let's just call this. We'll call it moody. Very moody. And when you start telling people that you're not training, and I get it. I actually get it. I understand from his point of view. If you've been training the last 3 years for Wilder, for those 2 fights, that means you've been doing the best. You've been so focused and motivated that you weren't going to let anything ruin those chances of not just winning the first time, but you get the draw, and then you get a chance to fight him a second time. But I also think he did it on purpose too, because everything just seemed kind of very coincidental as we talked in the pre-meeting and stuff. Like, hey, you had this article come out where you're basically telling everybody, you know what, I'm not training. So we have nothing signed, no date plan, nothing, no site located, and then basically, oh yeah, 2 days later, oh yeah, fight signed. We don't have a site yet, but we're looking for a 2-fight deal, and we might get 2 fights this year, and the second one being in December. Like, come on, guys. Come on.
I knew right away when I read it. Like, I'm the nerd. Like I said, I keep up with all the business crap. And Eddie Hearn and Aram a week ago, it was so quiet. Like, I didn't think I sent you the link, but it was so quiet. Aram was like, and I sent you another link later, but they both have said, yeah, the deal's done. We're just figuring out some things logistically, but it's done, people. Like, and it didn't get no headlines, and that's why I was just like chilling. Then Fury this weekend is like, I've been training for all this time. I'm waiting. I sent Sugar Hill home. I'm not training no more. There's not gonna be no fight. No one ain't telling me nothing. No one knows nothing. And then as soon as he says that, the fight is, they signed the contracts were signed that day, like when all this, or within 24 hours of him releasing this comment. So I look at that as Tyson Fury being Tyson Fury. No one was talking about the fight really because of the little stalemate that we had, as far as COVID. The main thing was find a location and a date, because summertime now, everybody's jockeying for these dates, as we're going to be talking about, and we talked about previous weeks. So the fact that, only thing I was missing was the site and the date. Everything was just done. The lawyers were just going over the deal points, making sure that both sides were happy. Then, of course, you had the little bickering between Aram and Eddie Hearn. So I know that probably delayed a day or two. Like, I want to talk to him right now. Like, tell the lawyers, we'll look at those papers tomorrow. So, probably a little bit that was going on when Eddie Hearn did the bidding with the Teofimo Lopez fight. It was little things like that happening. So it's just funny that he came out, made it a big deal, then the fight's assigned, and so now everybody knows is talking about it again. So I look at that as just natural gamesmanship, promoting the fight, and here it is. So like you said, 2-fight deal.
The thing with Fury, and here's maybe you have to look into the psyche of Fury and stuff like that, though. Not only is the man training to fight and stuff, but the man loves promoting. The man loves getting out there and promoting a fight. So I wouldn't be surprised this still maybe like the deal being signed and stuff is okay maybe in his eyes, but I think he'd love to get to an idea of, well, where's it going to be at and where's the date so I can get this, get my promotion on. So I can get out there and kind of mingle with the fans and stuff and try to push this fight and build it up the way I like to build it up in my way and stuff. And you've seen the way Fury likes to build up a fight. He's going to have fun talking a world of shit.
Yeah, he did. And this was basically him just, I want to talk my mess. I've been too quiet right now. Let me just get this off my chest. I've been silent in the media for a good minute right now. Only people have been talking have been Aram and Eddie Hearn. Once we knew that they were negotiating. So maybe he just kind of felt a certain type of way about himself. Like, man, no one ain't talking about me. These guys are talking. I'm the fighter. You know what I'm saying? I promote these fights. I want to make more money.
And this was like rated G compared to the usual stuff that comes out of his mouth. So I would say, folks, just stay tuned until a site and date comes out. And if a site and date doesn't come out anytime soon, you might hear from him again. He's, and even then, maybe you get a PG. Maybe we'll upgrade it a little bit and stuff. But as soon as the site and date comes out, he's going to do this hardest to promote this fight. And he's going to go worldwide on this one. He's going to go worldwide trying to get this fight sold any place and every place where he can get people to buy.
Now, the details came out saying it's going to be 50-50 for the first fight. The second fight, the winner is going to be 60-40. So they've already done that already. Like I said, probably Middle East. The only way that they're going to get this kind of money, they already said they secured a 40 million site deal, between 40 and 50 million just for the site deal alone. Then you add the fact that there's going to be pay-per-view on both sides of the pond. The UK, I don't know if it's going to be on pay-per-view on ESPN side. We'll see when that happens. But the UK on probably Sky Sports will probably have that pay-per-view running. And I heard too that they're probably going to keep it as close to prime time as possible for the UK audience. So for us, we'll probably come around between like noon and 4 p.m. because they know they're going to make the most money in the UK, because it's going to be the biggest fight in UK history, even though they have it in the Middle East. Let me ask you a question. If Anthony Joshua beats Fury, I'm not picking him to win right now. Off the rip, Fury's the odds-on favorite, and I'm picking Fury right now just off the rip. If Anthony Joshua wins, would you want to see him fight Fury right away in December, or would you want to see him fight Wilder?
I want to see the rematch, because chances are the same way I felt about the Wilder Fury draw is the same way I would feel about win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, not a draw. I'm just saying, like, let's say the Joshua wins.
If Joshua wins, I want to see it right away.
You want to see Fury Joshua 2 right away?
Yeah, absolutely. Because to me, the build up already into the first fight, however the win happens for Joshua, what I would hope was not the case is a controversial win. I would want it to be something on the dramatic side, but on the ring, in the ring only, right? And not a disqualification, none of that. I mean, I'm talking about something that you wouldn't expect, right? A body blow that just happens to take Fury down, as an uppercut that Fury didn't see coming, right? But throughout the whole fight, it's good. It's nonstop. It's good action. There's good strategy involved. There's good tactical moments in the fight. I would want to make that. I want that fight to basically tell me the story in the ring, why we'd get to a second fight. And if Joshua wins, I'm hoping that's just the case. I don't want to see nothing that would be controversial outside the ring or something in the ring, right? Like all of a sudden a couple points taken off because it just happens to be right at the belt for like a body punch or something. I don't want no points taken off because it's just right there at the gray area and stuff, right? If it's blatant, it's blatant. But nothing controversial. I want something in the ring that happened so that way I get to the second fight and the build-up's already there. The first fight should already lead the build-up to the second fight.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just throwing it out there just because at one point we really want to see Joshua Wilder, right? And we know that Wilder is in and out. People think that Wilder's done. Wilder only needs less than a second. I don't care if he's a head case right now. Most guys have had worse losses than Wilder. I only threw that in there because let's say that out of nowhere we have this crazy dominant performance by Joshua, and we want to have. I want to see this round. I want to see all three of these guys fight each other at one time.
Of course,
And so I'm just mentioning that just to make sure that there's people who, after seeing Wilder lose, that he's out of picture. No, he is not out of the picture. I just want to keep him there because when you got arguably one of the greatest punchers in boxing history. I'm saying that right now. He is one of the greatest punchers in boxing history. He has an eraser of a right hand that is unparalleled in boxing outside of Ernie Shavers and George Foreman. As far as one punch power in any division. So I'm just saying that just to play devil's advocate to keep him in the mix here. But I really think, just off the rip here this March, that Fury is going to give him the breaks. I really feel that right now. I don't think it's only going to be close for the first 2 or 3 rounds. I'm going to come out early and say that unless I see something differently, that Fury says something in his training or whatever the case may be, like we've seen him at 270 pounds ready for Wilder. If he's at 265, 70 and he's in good shape, I'm still not sold on Joshua after the last fight. So last 2 fights, actually.
So let me ask you this instead. Let's flip this around instead then. What if Fury easily beats Joshua, whether by knockout, TKO, or 12-round unanimous decision, right? And it's not even close. Talking about like 10-2 on the scorecards, 9-3. But you can tell Fury's in control the whole way, like a masterclass
type of thing. The jabs established, then the boxing clinic comes in and you only see a few rounds, but at the end of the day, no matter how bad the scoring is, it's clear cut. Like Wilder, Fury won, but he gets the win. Is that what you're describing?
Exactly. Well, how eager would you be to watch a second fight?
See, that's right. That's the reason why I brought up Wilder, because I'm not sold on Joshua for the last 2 fights because he played too safe in the Ruiz rematch. And I understand the logic of playing it safe because he felt that if he was in shape and you got people in the background seeing Ruiz camps like this dude is eating, he ain't ready. Just play it safe and let's get these belts back, right? I see that, but as the public, like, okay, you mentally maybe have not gotten back. At least you got that win. Then his last fight, he had to do the mandatory and he got out of it. I still don't see the same Joshua that I saw from a few years ago. Now, it takes a while to get your mojo back. He's still the champion and he has his belts back, but I don't see that same Joshua yet. I'm not sold on him. We've seen Fury go through the fire, went through drug problems, mental problems, all the things that he should not be alive right now, and came out on top and is the man right now. So if you're telling me a 9-3 fight, 10-2, whatever, 8-4, but dominant fashion, that's why I'm talking Wilder right now.
I hear you.
That's why I brought his name up, because I really think that after the 3rd or 4th round, Fury's gonna apply the pressure, that longer jab, and it's gonna hold him, but not hold him. I think it's gonna be similar to the Wilder fight, the second fight, but now that he's got a couple of years on his belt now, removed from the demons, I think that he would be more aggressive because this is a hometown fight technically. This is for all the marbles in the UK. This is for him to say that I'm the man. I'm going to go into the Hall of. It's the Hall of Fame type of fight for him.
Basically,
like he's
bringing in his all for that fight.
Yes, so that he doesn't have enough dance partners to say that he's in the Hall of Fame right now. He needs a little bit longer career, even though you're making a case for him right now. But this is the type of fight that gets him in the Hall of Fame. This is the type of fight that makes him UK royalty forever. The same way, I'm not trying to put in the same boat as Ali Frazier won, but for the UK, this is their version of it.
Yeah.
There is nothing bigger in boxing history in the UK than this fight right now.
No, agreed. And I understand why we keep bringing Wilder into the thing. So here's what I would say for Wilder, right? I think for Wilder's name to still be relevant in a upcoming fight discussion with, say, Fury, regardless of the outcome with the fights with Joshua, he needs to fight somebody like Ruiz. He needs to fight somebody like Yusuf. He needs to basically do the Triple G, except you're not the champion. Take out everybody who's next in line.
Yeah. So
that way there is no other choice. You are the next in line, and they have to. And for Wilder, he's got a smaller hill to climb than I guess maybe somebody like Triple G, who basically had to wipe out the whole division before finally getting to the Canelo fight and stuff. In this case, he just needs to maybe wipe out 1-2 guys at best that basically a former champion and an undisputed champion, a cruiserweight that's moved up. So just beat them, and you're all that's left for either Joshua or Fury. So to me, that's all Wilder needs to do to stay relevant. He does that, and not just that, knocks him out convincingly. Oh, I would love it, because that basically you're forcing your way by force. I'm coming after you guys, and that's really what I would want. When it comes to Joshua, I wasn't the Klitschko fight told me plenty, right? You basically got to a fight with a early 40s man, fighter who was basically at the tail end of his career, and you got knocked down in the 6th round, and you're basically 20 more seconds from being knocked out completely.
Not to cut you off. If Klitschko had Joshua when he fought Fury, Joshua doesn't get out of the fight. Joshua got Klitschko at the right time.
And still almost lost
to agree with you.
And still almost lost that fight. Give him 20 more seconds in that 6th round. Joshua was knocked out.
And not to take away from he got through the round and he got through him. It's just one of those perfect timing fights that Klitschko was just coming off that loss. And you got to remember too, the long layoff when he fought Fury, it was the longest layoff in his entire career.
Like a year, I would think.
It was like a year and a half. It was almost like 18 to 20 months because of the scheduling conflicts, and the fight got canceled and brought back. And it was his longest layoff. And then you add the fact that Fury style, at 6'9", I think that Klitschko didn't have this layoff and happened a year or two earlier, he would have got Fury. Yeah. I think it was at the perfect timing for Fury, and then he fell out, and then the perfect timing for Joshua. It was just perfect timing. The fact that he had the faded Klitschko to allow him to come up and then dig deep and to get the W. Because as much as I talk about that fight, and me and you are both saying that he shouldn't have got out of that round, he did get out of it. So we got to give him credit for it. It's just the fact that he got out of it against the not as good version of Klitschko that we normally saw through his his 2 heavyweight reigns, because he had 2 strings that were just defenses that were crazy. So even what you're saying there, even if Wilder doesn't even have a 2 fight, you could throw him in against either guy. That right hand alone, 12 rounds, like you said, all I need is to be perfect one time. You got to be perfect for 12 rounds. Like George Foreman, Shavers, guys like that, you just know that you got to, if you have your guard down at one moment, cancel Christmas.
Yeah, no, and I think, Fury probably is the only fighter that way in that heavyweight division right now that can withstand the punch and counter the punch.
Yeah.
Nobody else in that division, I think, can. I definitely would take Wilder over Joshua still. Even before his loss to Ruiz, I was still taking Wilder over Joshua.
Because of the jaw. Klitschko has tons of knockouts on his string because he's a big man, 6'5", he fought between 240 and 260 in his career, right? So accumulation of shots in your heavyweight in the head, you're going to get those knockouts. But Wilder at 217, and you've seen all the knockouts with one punch, and Joshua getting knocked down the way he did by Ruiz and Klitschko, if he felt Wilder's power, he's still sleeping.
I actually would like to see Wilder and Usyk get in the ring because they actually would be about the same weight in the ring. If you think about it, they would be about the same because you're talking about former cruiserweight champion, and then they'll fight.
They would actually. I think that Usyk would probably be a few pounds heavier, depending on because one thing about Wilder, he has been so keen about fighting under 220. Like he had a couple of fights in a row where he fought at between 214 and 217. Yeah. Matter of fact, the one Ortiz fight, he was sick. And I remember that he had lost weight. He was down to 213, 214 for that fight. I mean, but the fact is that he's such in crazy shape. It doesn't look for someone 6'7" looks crazy. Like he is probably got like 1% body fat. Yeah. You know, I just wish that he would probably put on a few pounds the right way. He has time right now. If I know he's a physical marvel, if he was around 225, 230, he would with
the movement that he still currently has.
And he could put on those 15 pounds easily with this time off right now. That would help against a Fury fight. I think against Joshua, he can be 220, 214, 220. We've seen how he did with Luis Ortiz. Ortiz kind of got the same frame as Joshua. Joshua's more muscular bound, but Luis Ortiz, have that same stocky shape. And you saw the styles and how that reacted compared to someone who's 6'9" with an 82-inch reach like Fury, So I'm saying he fought Fury. He needs to be at 230. He needs to bulk up because Fury is going to be, if they ever fight a third time, which I think they will because the money's too good still down the line, 40, 50 pounds leaning on you. I don't care how big you are. You can only take punches so many times. And then some man just like, just every single time,
One of the things, I mean, Wilder had better footwork because at times when he fought Fury in both fights, it was way too flat-footed. I think if because
he's looking for the one shot.
I think he need, and that's, I mean, you're talking about sitting on your punches. It's about
really sitting down, like both feet planted, and I'm waiting. As soon as you come into my airspace, I'm ready to throw that.
So I mean, to me, it's almost one of those things where go to Rocky 3, go train with Apollo, man, and just go
in the sand
and Duke and get out there and get out, do some laps. You want
to have a montage?
Montage.
South Park. It's gonna be a montage.
But I mean, but you get my point though. If his movement was even better, and that way he wouldn't have to sit on his punch all the time. He just have to kind of time it appropriately when to sit down with the punches. But other than that, you should be able to move better when you're at that weight. 217, 220. You should be moving way better than most of the heavyweights. In the division. So I think he needs to come back a better Wilder, just small things, not even big stuff, small things. Mm-hmm. But once he does that, he'll be a more dangerous Wilder. And like I said, even the Wilder now, I'd still put him ahead over Joshua, but I definitely would want him to be a lot better for when he fought Fury again.
So we'll talk about this fight as it comes closer here. So we know that's going to happen probably in the next few months now.
You can tell our excitement, folks.
Yeah. I wasn't planning on talking this long about this here. And I threw the Wilder question out there, and you can see just having players in a division, even after a loss, if you just know that they're still going to be competitive, and we know that they're going to happen possibly in the future, then this is what boxing is about. Like, I am excited to see Fury fight. I am excited, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Joshua. I do want to see him fight. He is a damn good fighter. Then at the end, I want to see how Wilder gets into this picture here. I want to see what Usyk does with him fighting for WO title, when this comes in play here. I would like to see Usyk fight Luis Ortiz, maybe. I want to see, and have you seen the pictures of Andy Ruiz? I'm talking excited right now because Andy Ruiz lost about 45 pounds, and he looked like a muscle-bound man working with Reynoso and the tainted meat.
The tainted meat
is working, baby.
It's working. So look, April 24, he's gonna fight Arreola. I'm looking forward to seeing a better Ruiz, basically just to excite me for the heavyweight division and stuff. Wilder, I wanted to take you by force. Take the division back by force, but just be a better fighter. Just be a better boxer. You're a great puncher. Be a better boxer.
Man. So on that note, we'll end the heavyweight talk now. When we get closer to the fight, I can't wait to talk more about it when we get more details. We find out about the undercard, who's going to be on there, things of that nature. So, hey, we're going to take a break here. I'm going to play a new ad here.
Who's our newest sponsor?
We have a new sponsor. So I'm going to put this on here and we'll be right back.
Excellent.
The protection you apply for the things you can do. Candom. Due to COVID-19, these days can be downright frightening. To make things intensely more horrific is the thought of coming within 6 inches of catching herpes simplex 1. And when combining COVID-19 with herpes simplex 1, by the way, that equals 20. The kind of math you don't want to have to add up. Equals to a lot of pain and unsightly discomfort. That's why Condom is the perfect protection against the damning pandemic kissing elements. As you can see, folks, condoms are much like your everyday face mask and your all-night prophylactic. Condom, the face mask that inverts into an oral condom. Now, when things start to heat up on a hot date and you find yourself face-to-face ready to get your entanglement on, as soon as your mask comes in contact with another face, condom retracts around your lips and tongue, latching on like a bear trap. As soon as you feel that tension on your curious tongue, best believe condom will have your mouth ready to get it on. Much like French kissing, but not really. Condoms are made for German kissing. Wet or dry, and extremely hard. Yeah, folks, you heard it here first. Hashtag MouthMMA. Bite your tongue and condom will release for proper disposal. Biodegradable, but not to be flushed down the toilet. Condoms are 99.69% effective against raw face syndrome and COVID chlamydia. Only side effect is possible suffocation. But that's nothing. Condoms come in 2 types, ultra thin and so damn thin, it's near non-existent so you can feel all that oral action. Yeah. Condoms made by the Germans, just for the hardcore. Don't get caught lipping and not expect your health to start slipping. Jump oh! Only good for one-time use.
Let's keep some checks coming in. Condoms.
Those sponsors got some creative advertising, man. But condoms.
Hey, COVID is real, people. And if you got to get it in, condoms. Hey, we believe in safety, people.
Do they come in extra large condoms?
Wow. Well, you can find out. You gotta. I ain't got nothing to say on that. I ain't got to comment on that.
just wondering. I mean, it's like triple X.
So shout out to condoms. Showing us love for boxing now. Well, we're gonna be having some more sponsors come through the pipeline. They liking what we do here. So next subject. Real fast here. Danny Garcia made an announcement this weekend that he's moving up to junior middleweight. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not a big thing. Okay. I just wanted to bring this up because we were mentioning some Charlo talk a few episodes ago. And we have one Charlo brother at 160, other Charlo at 154 who has 3 belts. And there was a talk about him fighting Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd was at one time the man at 154 before he had a setback loss about a year and a half ago. And so Jarrett Hurd has been on the comeback and he's had a few fights in line basically. And he was asking for a Charlo fight. And Charlo's like, nah, he had his opportunity and it was big time, but his team, he needs to win some more fights. And I was wondering when his next fight was going to be because I know that he wants to have a major unification because I think it's Patrick Testera has the WBO belt. He just won that title a few months back. So, of course, we're seeing everybody nowadays want to be the undisputed champion. I'm glad that people are actually want to get all the belts and want to be the man. You know what I'm saying? Forget saying, like, I was going to do this. I'm going to fight mandatories. I want it all. I want everybody to know that I am this person here. But, of course, with COVID, there's been some delays in fights getting signed here. And I seem like this is the reason here. It look like I'm just predicting, just from my boxing knowledge, I'm seeing probably a 2-fight deal possibly here that we're going to see Charlo fight somebody soon. What's going to be announced? And then Danny Garcia is going to have his first fight at 154, and that's going to set them up to have a major fight at 154, the way he's looking right now. And I'm going to get your opinion on this. I think that Danny Garcia is moving up because he can't make 147, and there's no good fights for him at 147 anymore because he lost to Errol Spence, and he got the brakes beaten off of him, right? So the only major fight for him we could see would probably be a rematch with Keith Thurman. Him fighting Keith Thurman, don't want to see that fight. I'm not interested in that. Or him fighting Mikey Garcia and doing that because he's trying to fight Manny Pacquiao. And then you got Terrence Crawford. We know that's not happening because the cross street between PBC and ESPN. So I'm looking at this at he can't make 147. He doesn't have any dance partners at 147. So the logical step we see many fighters do is they go up to 154 because you get up with age, it's hard to scale back. But this is just him trying to keep his career alive. Not alive, but still continue his career. But this is the last stop for him. We saw how small he was against Errol Spence. And if he fights someone who's Charlo, who's way bigger than Spence, if that fight really comes down, I'm seeing Danny going to get hurt like he did against Spence. He got hurt against Spence.
Yeah, and Danny didn't. We talked about this pre-meeting. I mean, when he got to at 140 was where his knockout power was where it ended at, really. When he got to 147, except for the fight against Brandon Rios and Paulie Malignaggi, he really
against guys who can't punch.
Exactly, where he had no fear about taking a hit, and he'll be basically where he didn't have to counter punch at all. Really, he basically just kind of needed to get into their zone and be able to throw a punch, and they were never going. He was never in danger of taking any punishment, right? But after that, I mean, most of his fights were, decision fights. He wasn't really. His power ended at 140. So, am I excited about him going to 154? No, and there's really no other choice for me to react that way. He didn't show me much at 147 that would have made me feel comfortable or happy about him being the 154 and feeling that he can pose a threat to the Charlo brother over there.
Mm-hmm.
Still don't, right? So he's gonna fight most likely some tomato can at 154 to kind of boost up his profile a bit. Probably if he knocks him out, I'll be surprised. I mean the guy's a real serious tomato can with a glass chin. Not even glass chin. Just what's even worse than glass, right? Just like thin ice, real thin ice.
Black ice. Gotta be careful, them guys. Black ice.
No, that's Charlo. That's Charlo.
Yeah,
that'll be Charlo. That'll be black ice then. Basically, he's fighting a snowflake.
Yeah,
and he'll beat that snowflake, and if he beats him by knockout, that's a snowflake. If not, it'll be a tomato can unanimous decision, and he fights Charlo and then gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, I just want to bring it up because I saw the headline on Fight Hype. Shout out to Fight Hype. I've been following them guys for like a good 11, 12 years, so they've been putting in the work. So Fight Hype, y'all do good work on boxing. Real appreciate
the
y'all.
Interviews are excellent.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. So I want to show some love to some other boxing sites too as well. We don't discriminate. If there's other guys doing good work, we want to shout them out too as well. So he made that announcement, and he's a good fighter. You know what I mean? Like he's had a really darn good career. But when you're fighting Errol Spence. And Errol Spence at the weigh-in was like, 146.4? He was under 147. It wasn't like he had a hard time making weight. This was the first fight that I mentioned that Errol Spence came in ready. Like he normally walks around like 180, 190. Before camp, he was like 160. Before he even had to lose any weight. He was ready to go after that car accident. And we see him in physical peak shape at 146. And then overnight when he ballooned up, it looked like that Spence was a middleweight and Garcia still looked like he was at 140. It was that big of a size. I mean, like just the back and the shoulders, you just seen the width on that, and you're going to go another division higher. Like, I understand, like, yeah, I know it's only 7 pounds. In boxing, you see who guys can get to those 7 pounds and who fits in that division. And you see like, yo, Danny can probably get a couple of fights here and there. He gets that Charlo fight. I think I'm going to put it out here right now. It's going to be worse than the Spence fight. This was his first fight off that horrific car accident where the car flipped over and he was thrown out of the car and came back and gave him that beat down. Charlo ain't been thrown out no damn car. Charlo, he fights his brother every day on social media. You know what I'm saying? They get into it all the damn time. Lion's Den. All right. So I'm just coming out saying, hey, I'm happy that Danny's continues career. But when we're seeing the road is leading to a Charlo fight in the PBC banner. Maybe he might fight a Herd down the line. I don't know. There's a lot of guys in there. Lara, there's a lot of people at 154, but we can see the end games there. If that happens, whoo. That's all I gotta say is.
And here's the thing my issue I had with Garcia and stuff. When he was at junior welterweight, he was hungry. He was going after it. To me, the highlight of his entire career to this day is still beating Lucas Matisse, because Matisse at the time was a knockout artist and a very feared fighter in the light welterweight division. And Danny Garcia put in that work, got a unanimous decision victory, retained his titles there. But it was, to me, the best fight of his entire career, because if you look at the rest of his career, and say you never watched his fight, but just looked up his fighting career and where things were going, you can tell he coasted off a bit. Basically, he only fought twice in 2016, once in 2017. He fought Keith Thurman in March 4, 2017, and did not fight for like another year.
Yeah.
Beats Brandon Rios, loses to Porter. So he fights twice in 2018 and then only fights once in 2019, back in April 2019.
This is when him and Thurman were doing the 1 or 2 fights a year type of thing, man. And it was pissing me off too.
And Garcia was driving me crazy. He pissed me off because I followed him and I liked where his trajectory was going. And I didn't like how the rest of his career was managed for himself and through his team, because I thought he slowed down. He looked like he slowed down wanting to get it. Like, to me, like he coasted off of a great victory with Lucas Matisse, and then after that, he didn't make me a believer in what he was. I was looking at somebody that I was like, hey, this guy could be something promising.
And let me add too, I'm glad you brought that up about Lucas Matisse. I was the only one in the building in Vegas that was rooting for Danny Garcia. Like, when that happened, Lucas Matisse was a world beater. I never forget when Richard Schaefer came in the ring, the fight before, when they got the fight announced, he called him the Argentinian Manny Pacquiao. Like, Lucas Matisse at that run at 140, there's a reason why his name was the Machine. And in the loss that he had, he was robbed. I can clearly say that I watched those fights. He was robbed. And then to see Danny, I remember being in the building, and I'm like, yo, all he do is win, because he's not the fastest guy. He was all about timing, and then his timing was pitch perfect when he got the shots on you. So it's the shots you don't see that knock you out. So it wasn't like he had the power. He was strong. But if you don't see it coming, that's worse than seeing it coming if you had straight power and you coming through. So I was the only one in the building. I wish I put money on that fight, because I would, if you can see old podcasts, I'm like, Matisse. Then the day before the fight, I was like, you know what? I changed my mind. I've done enough homework here. And it's Danny. Danny can fight. I just think that now he's at a size now that sometimes the guys can only go too far. Like, you can only go up to you're not like Manny Pacquiao or Floyd, where it doesn't matter where you go up, your boxing skills can translate. You can fight a guy 20 pounds heavier than you, and I think you still win. Manny can fight a guy at middleweight, and I think he will kill most of the middleweights. Same thing with Floyd. He can go up to 168. Those guys, even though they'll never do that, their skills are just so good. Danny, I think this is the end for him. Like, this is the last division for him.
Well, it's definitely the last division for him. And look, he's still a young man.
Oh, yeah. He's very young. Yeah.
32 years old and stuff. But the way
his size has a cap life.
It's not just at a cap life, but I think a lot of he's done that to himself. Look, I think with fighters and stuff over time, I mean, you can see the great fighters adjust when their power isn't there anymore, right? So all of a sudden, you might have, most of his career, he was a counter puncher.
Yeah.
He could have still gone away from that in the welterweight division and not have to be so much of a counter puncher, but kind of know when to counter punch and know when he needs to be the one coming forward and have to get points, right? If you're not knocking out people, how are you getting your points? So are you telling me you're going to basically just kind of sit there and wait for the fight to come to you all the time? You can't always do that. Especially when you don't have the power at 147 the way you did it at 140. At 140 against Lucas Matisse, you could be the counter puncher because Lucas was always coming
forward you. Yeah.
And I mean, let me rattle off some of the 140. Other than Lucas Matisse, he fought Eric Morales twice and Amir Khan, Zab Judah. He basically fought fighters that came forward and guys he can counter punch. For the most part, they fought to his style. At 147, he's fought some better fighters, and he doesn't have the power there. So you basically need to kind of change your style at welterweight, so that way when you got to junior middleweight, you would be able to fight a different style. And he hasn't changed any of it.
And I'm saying that's why I'm saying I don't believe in this going to this next division, because the last fight, his dad was pleading for him. His dad was like, "Come on, Danny, you have to do something here." He was begging him to throw punches, and Danny was still looking for the perfect shot. He was still waiting. And if you're not a knockout artist, like I said, if you're just a counter puncher who times good and you're not a knockout artist, you just time it perfectly so you see you can land that clean shot, you ain't stopping a guy like Spence. Spence was just eating those punches like it was candy. He was like, boom, okay. So if he tries to apply that same strategy against a Charlo or anybody else, even a Jared Hurd who comes in, he's going to throw 100 punches around, who is bigger, taller, longer than you, and coming forward. Now, for Danny, that's perfect for being a counter puncher. But if someone's longer and taller and bigger than you, who's going to overwhelm you, he's got to switch it up. And the thing is, if he's not listening to his dad, do we believe he's not going to do it? If his dad is in the ring telling you, Danny do something, and we're still seeing him fight the same way, I don't see him changing.
He never did his best Paulie Malignaggi impersonation after beating Paulie Malignaggi. There are times where you need to just pump out the jab because you're going to go against a fighter who's got a different build, a bigger build than what you currently present, and you might have to fight him a different way. You cannot counterpunch someone who's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. You basically need to change the way you fight. And if that means coming forward a little bit, you come forward when you need to, pump out the jab when you need to, and then counterpunch less, but do it at the appropriate time. So he never changed who his fighting style was, and I don't have any hope for my 154.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on that, that he made that announcement. So we're going to see some fights in the PBC banner for 54. I mean, even though we don't see anything, and the name value alone is going to be some interesting talk wherever he signs on the fight the next year or so, between the end of this year and next year. So talk about that here. So let's close out our episode here, and I wanted to talk about there was some talk here about Shawn Porter and Terrence Crawford is picking up steam right now.
Yep.
So we talked last week about Manny Pacquiao and Mikey Garcia. That's looking like that's likely headed. Pacquiao's looking for another easy payday, and we feel that Garcia is going to give him that easy work payday. Crawford is still in the mix, only mainly because that Manny's trying to see how much more money will Arum and Crawford side go for it. So that's the reason why we haven't seen like none of these fights signed on. But it's looking like right now, the way that Crawford and Porter are talking on social media, and in the way that Porter has been angling for this fight now. Porter and Crawford are good friends. So for years, Porter said, I don't want this fight. But now he's at a point in his career right now. It's like, yo, friendship aside, this is business right now. So Porter went on Twitter and was like, yo, no, I'm ready training camp right now. I'm ready for May, blah, blah, blah. And Crawford came out saying, hey, I'm already here, man. Keep me posted. What you got going on? They were going back and forth, creating that dialogue. They've been talking and talking, but now Terrence Crawford is like, okay, keep talking then. You know it now. So behind the scenes, when you see stuff like this happening and Porter needs a fight, came to find out too that Al Heyman gave him the green light. So you want this fight, go for it. So now Porter's going full steam ahead, and he's got his own podcast. Shout out to Shawn Porter's podcast. Met him. I'm going to post some pictures on our website when we get it up here. Really, really dope dude. Cool dude. Love him and his dad. Really good people. Got a dope podcast, and they talk good stuff about boxing. But it's looking more clear right now that we could probably see Terrence Crawford against Shawn Porter sometime this year, while Errol Spence is working on his unification fight against you guys for the WBO title here. So I just want to get your thoughts on Shawn Porter Crawford fight now.
Styles makes fights. This would be a hell of a fight. Porter is going to, though. I mean, you can kind of see it already. Porter's going to eat punches on the way in, and Crawford's going to throw a bunch of punches from both sides. And definitely switching stances every chance he gets. So it'll be interesting to see how Porter cuts off the ring. I would think that is going to be one hell of an interesting fight. That fight's going 12 rounds.
Yes,
I think right now, I think Porter's got a hell of a chin. Crawford's got a chin that hasn't been fully tested yet.
He's never been a guy this strong before. Like, for people who have issues with him in his welterweight career because he hasn't fought anybody yet at welterweight, you can say like his best win is against freaking what's his name, Kell Brook. Oh my God, yeah. So Bob Arum can't give him no fights at welterweight. So this will be the determining factor where that, like, come out, Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard. I was going to talk about that, but I didn't want to spill the beans by talking about this here. This is like the equivalent. You have two men in their prime, like in Spence and Crawford, and we want to see this fight bad, but you got to get Porter here. And I see this will be the fight that will showcase Crawford's mettle here against a guy who's just going to be in his grill. He's going to be in the chest. He's just going to be hugging and roughing him, throwing elbows, and just, and even if he's eating punches, he's just going to be cutting off those angles, and then he's going to be smothering his punches. It's going to be all over him. Porter's going to give him the same fight that he gave Errol Spence. And it was such a close fight till Porter caught that one shot when he got knocked down. And even then about that knockdown, it's been such a close fight that Spence needed that knockdown. Yeah. So I'm seeing that this fight's going to be similar, and I'm curious how Crawford handles it because he's never been in a fight like this before. Not this guy who's going to be that grizzly in his chin,
Yeah, and God bless Porter, man. Not just what he does in the ring, but the broadcasting skills. I love him. I love him on the mic. He does great.
Yeah.
But I what I love about Porter though? He's still hungry.
Yeah, man.
That rematch with Spence.
Yeah.
He knows he wants it. He wants it because he still feels, I think, after, if it wasn't for that knockdown, that there was a chance.
There was, yeah, that's a 10-8 round. And who's to say what happens if he does not get knocked down and he wins that round? And then depending how it goes in that 12th round as well, because it changes the whole trajectory of that fight and how those two fighters are. Because I think we have an immediate rematch if Porter wins that fight.
Exactly.
You know, but of course, Spence wins. He's on the bigger and better things, how that works out, basically.
And so I like Porter's attitude, basically. Some of the same advice I would give for Wilder. Like, if you want that rematch, force your way to that rematch. And Porter's doing that. He's basically saying, what can I do to force that rematch to happen? Okay, let me take out the guy that you are refusing to fight. Well, you guys are
jockeying for more money, so you guys are not giving the people what they want right now.
You guys are not wanting to fight each other for whatever the reason is.
And I'm a dollar fighter, but I'm not gonna command as much as Errol Spence here. So, hey, give me $3 million and see if we can get this thing going.
Exactly. I got my money and so right now I'm working about my legacy right now. My legacy involves having to beat you. So let me beat this guy that you won't fight, but I will beat once I beat him, I'll fight you next.
If Porter beats him and gets to be a belt, he's automatically gonna get that rematch with Spence, because then you have it in all PBC unification fight. So if you're Al Heyman, you're like, yeah, I want to do this fight. I don't get as much money off this fight because you're going across the street. But if my guy wins, I can. And of course, it throws everything out the door because we want to see a Crawford Spence fight, right? But if you're Al Heyman, you're like, yeah, that sucks, but my guy gets to be undisputed, and I get to pay him top dollar and keep all the money in house here. And then my guy does this here, and then eventually we'll have him move up to 154. And then I got some bigger fights for him with Charlo and everything that could be down the line as well. So there's so many angles with this fight that can happen here. But I like the fact that if Porter gets this fight, I'm still going to say that Crawford is the favorite, but I probably just put $100 on Porter just as a friendly wager because the odds might be good enough for me. The odds might be good enough for me to throw away $100 if I lose it. Like, yeah, if it wins, that's lobster money.
The early odds, I'm gonna pay attention for where the money's going, and if the money's all going towards Crawford, I'm gonna dump some of that money.
That's what I'm saying though. It's one of those type of fights that I'm not a degenerate gambler, but I will put some money down here. But if you're a degenerate gambler or you have some free money to throw around, that's the type of fight that you would put money on Porter. These are type of fights. Is like, yeah, you know what though. Let me see here. What round 5? Blah blah blah. Okay, let me see what the odds makers say. Let me see what FanDuel is saying with this fight here. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those type of fights, not a 50-50 fight, but it literally could go either way.
Casual fans and my boxing heads really wanted to see a Crawford Spence fight and stuff like that. But you know what I love as a fight fan? Clarity. I like clarity in the boxing division and stuff like that. And in this case, you're letting me know that this Porter Crawford fight clears up everything. Crawford wins. Should hopefully have a fight with Spence soon.
Yeah.
If not, Porter and Spence are definitely going to happen the second time. And if you saw the first fight and we're happy with the first fight, you'll be happy with the second one.
So on that note here, we'll see what happens. It's not official. They're talking right now. But like I said, though, I think I've done a pretty good job here. When I notice things on social media, there's a couple of things that hit the fan that haven't. But when this happens, fights get announced eventually down the line. So hopefully it's not the fight we want to see. But it's like, okay, like I always bring up the NBA, there's a schedule and you want to see the Lakers against the Brooklyn Nets when they're fully healthy. Every once in a while, then of course, the schedule, you want to see the Lakers and the Clippers. That's how the schedule falls sometimes, all LA, like things of that nature. Sometimes in boxing, the schedules, you want to see Spence and Crawford. But if you can get Porter and then hopefully down the line, this opens the door for a Spence fight, I'm all for it. As long as these guys are fighting top guys that makes good quality fights. That's what we want to see. If this is going to be a quality fight, I think the you guys fight against Spence will be a good fight. I think Spence is going to blow him out, but it'll be good for the media point to get clarity for the welterweight division, get these belts. But if it happens, Porter and Crawford, I'm watching it, man. I'm all in.
Have you noticed something too with this clarity and stuff like that? If somebody owns all the belts or the majority of the belts, that's clarity.
Yes.
That's clarity. And so with the boxing sanctions out there, same thing. Just give me one body that says it all. In this case, you have to force a boxer to get all the belts, and it helps.
And that's what they're doing here. I like this. This is the one time in history we're seeing everybody going after all the belts. We have Teofimo at 135. Eventually, hopefully at 140. So we're going to see 140 and on May 22nd. The heavyweight division coming up here with the 2 fights here. Yep. Canelo at 168 right now. We just had a unification at cruiserweight. That's why Usyk is now moved up here. So I'm liking the fact that we're seeing all these unifications right now because we know that in that time, that man was the man in that division.
And you really know the pecking order a lot better. It's a lot more clear and stuff. So right now, I mean, like I said, in unison with the rankings themselves, and somebody having all the belts, you know who's next, who's going to be there, who's in the top 5 overall. Because someone has all the belts, and there's nobody squabbling about who's got what belt and what rank they're on and what division. So
okay, people, and with that, we are ending this show here. So click on like, subscribe, click on the bell notification for YouTube, Spotify, Boxer Now, click on follow. Also, we're on Twitch. We'll be streaming live again on that one, Boxer Now, if you want to follow us. And also, too, I'm on another show, Jump Off Live, that streams live on Wednesdays on YouTube at 8 p.m. Central Time. Jorge, what you got?
Live_Dominoes is the Twitch TV channel you can find us at. So we are playing on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Wednesdays, we take the show on the road. If you're in the Chicago area, we are at PL Lounge, 3456 North Pulaski Avenue. Every Wednesday from 8 p.m. to 11. You can get there as early as 6 o'clock to enjoy some of the food and get some domino games in there before the stream goes live. And then we'll be back at La Taberna on Thursdays and Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 11. If you are interested in ever playing at any of those locations, you can send me a whisper on the Twitch channel itself. I respond to all whispers and email requests coming from there.
Okay. On that note, we're going to sign this show off. So glad for you guys checking out the Boxing Now podcast, and we'll be back again from Jorge. I'm that dude named Dave. See you guys later.
Be safe.